Hello, everyone, and welcome to probably one of the most complicated entries I think I've done to WTG. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing today? I'm exhausted, but we're going to get through this. I'm going to be teaching you today about a very, 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 very important quality. So, before we begin, I almost have, I almost have to admit that I've made an error. So lately, when we've been talking about neutral and with my time away from WTG, I often reflect on my mistakes. And I feel like one of the biggest mistakes that I did for neutral was basically trying to teach everyone concepts of movement individually, devoid of relation to one another. So, for example, one of the things that I really wanted to do, like, I would teach positioning, I would teach movement, but you can't really remove context. I think what ended up happening by teaching neutral in such a piecemeal way is that I feel like it led to a lot of confusion and almost dogmatic thinking where I didn't mean to create that level of dogma. So, what I'm going to do today, which is very, very important, I know the title is a little bit confusing, but today we're doing what I call a neutral syllabus. From now on, I will still be doing master classes on, like, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the trajectory of DVFC. So, right off the bat, the first thing that I have to tell you guys is from now on, I'm going to be focusing many master classes on neutral, improving movement, positioning, and including the highest level concepts of it. So, our master classes are going to get pretty advanced, but if you're worried that it's going to be too advanced for you, don't worry. I think that these classes I'm going to try to keep for both beginners and high level players alike. I think there's a unifying body that we can tap into that will basically explain this to everyone and allow them to stay on the same page regardless of skill level. I do think that there are things that will come more easily if you're higher skilled, but I'm not leaving my new players behind. This doesn't mean that this will be the only masterclass, though, as I think I might start doing two masterclasses, where now we'll do the high level, heady, esoteric stuff, but I'm also thinking about doing the more basic, rundown, answering questions, recap classes that are more aimed for people that are need to catch up, as well as talking about other things that maybe are a lot less complicated, but something that a lot of people don't think about. For example, something like rhythm. So going forward, you can expect a lot more masterclasses. As for the month of April, I do have a couple of announcements to get out of the way. As for the month of April, we will be doing a ring match evaluation. I will announce how we do that in a later stream. I will announce when it is in a later stream. You guys will have at least 2 weeks in advance to know when I plan on doing it. And when I do it, it's going to be pretty interesting because I have a new format that I'm going to try. So look forward to that. We're still workshopping it, but look forward to it. I do want to start getting into ring match evaluations again, see how all of you guys are doing. The next big thing that I have to tell you guys is there is another stream tomorrow. Tomorrow, I have fallen on some financially very difficult times. Uh, I'm okay if you guys are worried about me, but I do need some extra capital. So what I want to do is I want to do a donation stream. And tomorrow I'm going to have a donation goal. I'm going to keep it a little bit exorbitant. I don't expect you guys to meet it, but it would be cool if you guys did. And in exchange, I have a very special concept that I'm going to do because I let my subs vote on it. I will be doing a tier list for team building, meaning I'm going to talk about, I'm going to rank each character in where I think they belong in the team, and within that order, which one I think is superior at that role than the other. So, for example, one category is going to be strictly point, the other one is going to be they could be anywhere, well rounders. Basically, my idea is to talk to you guys about where every character is at their strongest as a guide to help you building your teams. So that way, you guys can build teams with proper points. That way, you guys can start thinking about it and take some of the weight off and some of the stress off as well. So I'm really looking forward to that. And, I will be doing that. And if you guys would like to donate to help me out during this financially stressful time, I would be unbelievably appreciative because you guys are amazing. But without further ado, I'm going to get on to what this stream is about. which you might be wondering, what is this stream about? This stream is going to be a neutral syllabus, as I mentioned, meaning I will be going over everything from the very basics that you guys are already aware of to the highest of high level neutral that even the best Dragon Ball players in the world do not do consistently. You might be wondering, Ken, how can you teach something higher than the highest high level of Dragon Ball? Oh, thank you so much for the sub. I appreciate it. You might be thinking, how can you do something higher than the high level of Dragon Ball? Well, we'll get to that. But a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is rooted not just in fighting games, but it is rooted in all martial arts. It is going to be something that is existent in every martial art form in some form of another, be it kendo, kenjutsu, iaido, taekwondo, boxing, MMA, fencing, hema, whatever your flavor is, essentially, for fighting. I think that all of these techniques are going to be readily applicable. And I think what I want to start doing is start pushing us where instead of chasing after high level top players, instead of following them and running after them, my goal is to embody what Miyamoto Musashi said. Do not follow masters. Instead, seek what they sought. Do not follow masters. Instead, seek what they sought. What I believe that means is instead of following somebody and how they play the game and chasing after it, why don't we just chase after the same target that they chased after? And I think an important way to do that is to push the meta. It's a little ambitious, a little pretentious. If you think that sounded pretentious, I agree with you. Don't get me wrong. I'm not unsympathetic to that. But I do think it's important because I really do think that this game, indeed all fighting games, I think we can really hit something special here if we try. And I really believe in you guys to be the ones to carry the torch if you so choose. I think that everyone here can benefit at the very least and see immediate improvement, at least a little bit, in their play upon hearing this. And hopefully by the end, by the time I'm done talking about neutral, you guys would have attained a level you never dreamed of having before. I think that would make me the happiest. And without further ado, we're going to be talking about a lot of different concepts. Now, here's the thing. This is going to be very haphazard, so I'm going to be covering a lot of things. As I said, this is going to be an overview. Every single individual segment I'm going to mention from this point on will receive its own series, not only its own class, its own series of classes. That's how much there is to talk in every single thing. But the reason why I'm presenting it on the whole in this particular stream is so that way you guys understand where we're starting and where we're going. I want you guys to see the big picture before we start going into the finest details. So that way you guys never lose sight of where we're going and never get lost and confused because you will always have the big picture to guide you. Does that make sense? Are you all with me? Are you all with me? I want to see some ones in the chat if you guys are excited about this because I'm very excited about this. I would put a 1 in the chat if it didn't probably crash my game. Very nice. I'm super excited for this. I'm going to be talking to stuff. Excited, but a little concerned. No worries. 1, bless me, Ken. I will. All right. Let's do this. I think I got you guys. Now, here's the thing. If you guys have any questions, no matter how silly it may be, please ask it. I will answer it as long as it's relevant to what I'm talking about. So if you guys have a team building question, I'm not talking about team building, I would consider asking at a different time. Now, let's talk about the most important thing. I want to lay down some foundations for you. This will be the foundations of what we learn from now on. And basically, this entire endeavor is how to understand your opponent. So, what's the first thing that we need to talk about? I'm going to lay down a term for you. Game language. Game language. Game language. Now, this is a term that actually, I don't know if it exists in hypodermic, in academic circles. I don't know if this exists in academic circles. But basically, I didn't come up with the term, but I am robbing it. And what do I mean by game language? So, very much the reason why I use language is because language is basically a set of rules, if you really think about it. Really think about language. It's a set of rules that are sometimes fluid, sometimes very, very critical, because if we change language too much, we become unintelligible to other people. So it's a long list of rules that we can play a little bit fast and loose with. But nonetheless, there are certain fundamentals that we all agree to adhere to for the sake of effectiveness. But within those limitations, we have a borderline infinite degree of expression that is limited only by our vocabulary with which to express ourselves. I believe there are other types of languages as an analogy. For example, film language. How can you communicate ideas, emotions, and how can you communicate things from an audience as an auteur or a director to an audience visually? That's film language. And you guys, believe it or not, are probably already aware of what film grammar is, whether you realize it or not. But that's another stream. I'm not going to get too ahead of myself. So what exactly is game language here? Well, this game offers us a lot of opportunities to express ourselves. And every game, very much like every movie, has a different set of visual languages where different directors will use different techniques to convey different ideas. A video game also employs these things through its physics and its balance. I don't mean balance as in lab code or Gogeta Blue or like actual character balance. I mean balance as in the way mechanics interact with each other. So, like, I can do an infinite number of things very, very, very differently from most people. However, there are certain rules that I have to follow. The biggest rule, 5L, is always going to be 6 frames for Blue Goku. It might be 5 frames for another character down the line. It might get patched. But for Blue Goku, if you are playing Blue Goku as well, we both will only have a 6-frame jab. And it will always be -3. You can't change that. It's fundamental. It's elemental. It's baked into the code of the game. It also will never exceed this reach without a universal modifier, like, for example, dash blocking. But if I just tap light, there is no universe where, even if I do this for infinity, my Blue Goku is never going to magically walk all the way over here because he's not designed to move forward with his jab. Meanwhile, Adult Gohan can. But Blue Goku can't. There's nothing I can do about this. My 2M, similarly, is always going to be 10 frames up close, 16 to 17 frames tip range. And why is this important? Because these rules are rules that we both have to abide by. Even if you play Blue Goku, your Blue Goku is going to have access to the exact same tools that my Blue Goku has. Now, I know this sounds obvious. You might be wondering, why are you explaining to me something that seems very obvious? And I promise it's foundational. It will become very clear in a moment. But the first thing I want you guys to think about is game language. Now, think about other examples of game language. If you're watching this in the chat, please come up with what you would consider a part of DBFZ's game language. Give me a mechanic that's universally true, or something that is immutable regardless of who's playing. I want to see what you guys think is game language. Let's see if we can come up with some examples. I would love to see where chat's at with this. One spark per game, unless Dragon Balls. Clashes, yeah, okay. Those are both very, very universal mechanics. Clashes do happen. They are a part of the game. They are a part of the game. DR in air always gives SKD. Yes. Okay, that is a rule. I mean, again, some characters might have, like, exceptions, but yes. Not smart enough to help. I disagree. Give it a try. Even if you're wrong or even if you fail, it's okay. I would prefer you try it anyway. 6M. 6M is universal. Yeah. That is something every character... Dash distance. Ooh, Dinos. That's a fantastic example. You get a cookie. You get a. I need to have like a sound bite. Whenever one of you guys does something really good, I need like a Cookie Monster like chowing on something. 2M is a low. Not all. Yeah, yeah. But I like dash distance a lot. You're right. Dash distance is more or less universal across the cast. You are correct. There are only certain exceptions for like specials, like for example, like Kefla doing her dash, her command dash. But yes, you are correct. Dash distance is fairly universal across the cast. That is so. You have no idea why it's good yet, but I promise it's good. Movement speed, to an extent, I think Majin Buu has some weird properties on his thing, but yes, for the most part, movement speed is very, very, very basic. Jumping has punishable startup. That is another really good one. I like that one, Fuzzy. Assists will always require a cooldown. Correct, Tyron. You are very correct. Super dash plus assist is mixed. That's not universal because it isn't for Vegito. Fast fall float. That isn't true for Roshi, but yes. Good job. All right, you guys have a pretty good idea. Now, all of you have correct answers. Read all the answers in chat, put them in together, and we're starting to understand what the basic mechanics and rules of this game are. There are rules. We are going to use these rules as a guideline with which to express ourselves, the same way we would use syntax, vocabulary, grammar, inflection, and other qualities of a language to communicate with one another. Just like right now, I'm using I'm sorry, I'm reading the script that I had Fuzzy wrote. If you don't mind me getting sidetracked. My original idea was to have a petty class about what it means to listening about how millennia and blah blah blah. I feel like that's pretty accurate to listening to me nowadays. But yes, shout outs to Fuzzy, by the way, for helping me. They are amazing. But point being, point being is that you guys have a pretty good idea of what the game language is, and you have an idea of the parameters with which you guys can express yourselves in. Hopefully, if you're new to the game, this is the thing that you need to learn the most. It may feel like it's an insurmountable task because you don't know where it ends. And it's true, improvement is a constant incline. However, what you want to do if you are at the very base of the game is understand the game's basic rules and understand them intuitively. For example, understand how long a dash is. Understand how far a dash can go. Understand the ranges of buttons. Understand that you're minus if you whiff, which is another big mechanic. That would be my answer. You're always minus if you whiff. There is no move in the entire game that is unpunishable. It just depends on your distance. Now, there are some moves that are near impossible to punish, don't get me wrong, because you don't have enough time, or they recover too quickly, or you have to respect them too much, blah, 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 blah. But you are always minus. That's important. And we will come back to that. But now you guys have a pretty good understanding of game language. That's the first thing we're going to establish. Is everyone on the same page? Do we have any questions before I move on to the next one? I want to make sure we're all on the same page and nobody gets left behind. No questions for me. Are we writing this down? I would recommend it. You don't have to if you don't want to. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I do think it's a good idea. Because I'm going to go over a lot. Okay. Any other questions? Anything else? I love how interactive you guys are today. When can I expect to review this whole thing? I'm going to have it up probably by tomorrow. I know I said I was going to upload the last recap. It's going to be up at the same time. Bear with me, guys. This week has been just absolutely nightmarish, if I'm honest. But I will get it up as soon as I can. And by as soon as I can, I mean probably by the end of this week. So just keep an eye out for it. I'm also going to have this uploaded, hopefully by next week, on YouTube with chapters. So that way my YouTube gang will also be taken care of. And you also will have it permanently. Ken will always lab Luku loops should have been my answer. Fair enough. Well, it's because he's the character that requires the most execution from me. So I have to get back into him, you know? But yeah. So the next important thing is I want to talk about how you should go about learning. So this is a little bit tricky because everyone is very, very, very different. Everyone will have their own methods. I will encourage you, above all else, including above my own suggestions, you guys should have an idea of what works for you. Do not deviate on it just because I said so. Just because I recommended something that you don't do, that doesn't necessarily mean you need to change. However, if you guys are open to change and you want to have a new method of study, I do have a little bit of advice that I would like you guys to bring with you even in as we go further into this class. Number one piece of advice is pace yourself. There will be a lot of things that you do not understand. Write it down. Come back to it later. Review your notes. If you have access to the Discord, you can just ping me in advice and questions and answers. I'm sorry, what is it called? Advice and critiques. And I promise you I will answer the moment I am able. And I'll give you a long list of it. And I'll give you my full answer, even if there's somebody else there to help you. So that brings me to my next thing. What's very important is ask questions, even if you think they're silly. Even if you think you already know the answer, if you're not 100% sure, please ask. I encourage it because asking solidifies. Like, a lot of people think asking a question is just going to be like, okay, well, if I already know the answer, I don't need the question. Okay, well, how well do you know the answer? Do you know the answer well enough that a week later of not engaging with this topic at all, you're going to be able to remember and recall off a dime? Maybe not. Because this is a lot of stuff and it's a lot of information. So if you have a question, it can help you essentially remember because you had to take from your own volition to ask the question in the first place. So anything that you're not 100% sure on, I will always recommend ask a question. Now, most importantly, keep an open mind. What I'm going to talk about is a little out there. I don't expect you to accept it blindly. However, I do invite you to, at the very least, set aside your preconceived notions and engage with the material honestly. I think that if you were to do that, you would come to the same conclusions that I had about the material, and I think the material will be very useful to you. If you have to reinterpret the material in a way that you might understand or a way that helps you better understand it, by all means, I invite you to. I'm not going to posit myself as the ultimate authority on this. Oh, hello, TJ. I'm not going to invite myself as the ultimate authority on this. However, I do want you guys to try your best, at the very least, to expand your minds and think about Dragon Ball FighterZ outside of how you think about it now. Even if it disagrees with me, I want you guys to remain an open mind and always question everything. And that brings me to my final piece of advice for how to learn. Always, always question everything that you're doing. Everything. Why am I doing a combo this way? Why are we moving this way? Why is Ken teaching this? Whatever it is, question it. Don't just accept it. Question it. Because questioning it, even if you continue to do it, will lead to a deeper understanding of the material. Even if you end up being like, no, Ken is completely right. If you question it and you arrive at that conclusion on your own, you will have attained a deeper level of understanding than somebody who just blindly followed me for no reason. Because remember, the number one adage is, we are not following masters, we are seeking what they sought. That is it. Mash button equals good explosion. You can try that, but you will be sorely mistaken if you find somebody that knows what they're doing. Now, here's the next thing. Okay? I also want to talk about very, very, very important concepts here. Today we are going to be talking about two major concepts that go hand in hand. Number one, I'm going to teach you what it means to listen to an opponent. I realize you guys have probably been watching me for a while, if you haven't already. If you guys have found me through YouTube and this is your first stream or your first couple of streams, you guys have probably seen my previous YouTube streams and probably seen me either on commentary or In a ring match evaluation, I'm constantly saying you need to listen to your opponent, blah, 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 blah. Today, I'm not only going to talk about what that means, I'm going to talk about how you can begin to do that. So by doing so, like I've said, you're not going to be able to apply everything right off the bat. Rule number one, not everything I'm going to talk about is going to be accessible to you. So if you can't do it, don't worry about it. I'm going to include instructions and a tutorial on how to try and how to begin. But do not worry, because I will be talking about the whole thing of what it means. And to do that, I'm going to need some volunteers. I'm going to need my buddy, Fuzzy. Fuzzy, where is you at? Where are you at? You better meet me in my treehouse, if you know what I mean. I'm going to connect to the VC there, as I just did. And I'm going to ping Fuzzy. There we go. Is that my Vamer there?
Yeah.
What's good, Fuzzy?
Oh, you know, this and that, things and other things.
You know it's a serious masterclass when it is the first masterclass I have ever had that literally requires another person.
Yeah.
This is the first we're in unprecedented territory. The first masterclass that has someone else that isn't Star, rather.
Like,
all right. Now.
and yet the students are the real stars.
That is true. That is true. You guys are stars. You guys are stars. You had one with T a while back. You're right, I did, didn't I? But who cares? Who the hell even remembers T?
What the fuck?
I'm kidding. I'm joking. For those of you that think that was a mean joke. T and I are really good friends. He DMs me every now and again. Like, I love that kid. Like, it's fine. I love T. And T, if you're listening to this, I love you, bro. You know I do.
Am I gonna need my Ethernet cable?
He is missed. He's there. Yes, you are gonna need your Ethernet cable. So, it may seem like we're gonna do matches, but we're gonna talk about something very, very important. Fuzzy, when we enter the match, I want you to just block. So, what does it mean to listen to your opponent? Well, before I begin, I think it might be easier if I ask you guys what you guys think I mean. What do you guys think I mean when I say listen to your opponent?
Personally, I think it'd be a lot easier if this game had a voice chat system.
Right?
Just like Xbox, you know? That mind game's a lot easier when you can hear them. You can hear the slurs. It's like, oh yeah, he's upset.
Somebody clip that, please. Someone clip that. I like when we could be lighthearted on this stream, even when I'm doing a class. Let them tell you what they are willing to do. I like that. That's a good answer, Tyron. Your opponent is telling you what they do and don't know, and what they do, what they will hit. Observe your opponent's patterns and habits and adjust your playstyle to counter them. Now, all of you guys gave a really, really good answer. I think all of you are actually correct. Dinos, try to tune into how people are expressing themselves. I think that's correct too. Now, here's the question. How do you do that?
Ugh.
That's where everyone kind of loses it a little bit, right? Like, okay, how do I do that, right? Like, you're like, it's your turn. Yeah, I have more priority than me. Damn it. That was mean. You would jump. That was the meanest thing I've ever done. But ironically, it was actually a really good example of listening to your opponent. So right there, what you just saw is what I would call a legacy skill. You would see that when you see players that play each other a lot, they are able to anticipate each other's movements because they know each other's timings, they know each other's tactics and patterns and things like that. You will see this most commonly with Goichi and Fenrich, where they do things that they will never do with another player because they know each other that well. So typically, I run away. Okay, we're going to teach you how to listen to people. The first step is there are 3 tiers for understanding. The first one is you need to answer these 3 questions. What can your opponent do? What do they want to do? What will they do? The last 2 sound like they're similar, but they're actually very, 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 very different. But the first step is what can they do? Well, very simple. Fuzzy, come over here for a moment. We're going to pretend like this is round start. Okay, so about round start's about right here, right? So here's the thing. Go ahead and block. I can reach them, but they can also reach me. Go ahead and 5M. This is an actual thing that can happen between us. Now, if we press 5M at the same time, press 5M when I land, they win. But watch what happens if I do. See? So, who has, like, we will talk about this in depth with strategy later down the line. However, the reason why this is important is because you need to know what your opponent can do. In this particular case, if Fuzzy was listening to me, or if Fuzzy, not necessarily listening to me, but if Fuzzy understood our game language, we're going back to that term, they would know that Blue Ku's shoulder wins because Blue Ku's shoulder is faster. And it has, for some reason, a higher priority. Don't ask me why. But this always wins. No matter what. You're supposed to 5M.
Oh.
Okay, wait for me to land! Damn! See? This will usually win. So if Fuzzy knows that that is a threat, what should Fuzzy ideally do to be very, very careful and not get hit? Jump back. Exactly. They know that Blue Ku kind of has a right of way. Now, if the situation was reversed, block, or actually reflect. Okay, that's fine. Now here's the thing. Adult Gohan, he can do this, and he can do this. But other than that, Adult Gohan, really, I can't contest I'm sorry, I can't contest Gogeta 4 very much. That 5M is massive. It will hit me first. I could do this, but I can't really convert it properly. I can maybe do something like that, but, you know, if they decide to 2H, why?
Time was up.
You're right. But why would you DR me? It's mean.
I meant to level 3, but I don't know, the input coming in.
God damn it. Now, here's what's very important. We can use game language and what we understand about the game to determine who has an advantage in a particular situation. And depending on how much we understand the game and the rules of the game, we can effectively begin to formulate strategies in order to control our opponents. When Fuzzy gets back, I will demonstrate, for example. So here's...
I have arrived.
So when Fuzzy gets back, I'm going to demonstrate. So now that they're back, Fuzzy, I'm going to jump up, and then I want you to backdash.
Mm-hmm.
I can die here. I'm going to... Now I want you to backdash 5M, okay? That's a punish. That's a punish right there. I incur risk. Now, is that a decision that Fuzzy should always make? No, because I'm not always going to lariat. But that's not the point. The point is that by understanding the system, Fuzzy can begin to accumulate tactics that control things that I want to do and kill me for the things that my characters would want to do. This is what I mean when I say you need to understand what your opponents can do. Now, what if Fuzzy doesn't know that my lariat wins against 5M? What's going to happen is you're going to see go, and then... Oh, I didn't. We're going to see go, and then... And by the way, for those of you that don't know, that is a medium scaling starter. Blue Goku, with this team, if I spark, round start, Fuzzy's dead. That's a COD. There is a lot of priority here. There is a lot of priority here that is very, 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 very important for Fuzzy to control. And if Fuzzy knows that getting hit by the shoulder is disadvantageous, They can factor into that. There's that they can factor that into their decision making, where they can effectively begin to make sure that they don't get hit by that. This is the basics of tactics. What I'm teaching you is the foundation of strategy. You can arm yourself immediately by understanding what your opponent can do. Now, let's make this a little bit more complicated. Our teams control a different amount of space. Call your assists. These assists both reach full screen. Mine do not. Gohan only covers about my 2H range here. Literally just my 2H. Oh my god. So, he doesn't really go very far. And because of that, Fuzzy really doesn't have to worry. If I call 18, Fuzzy doesn't have to really worry about Gohan unless they decide to attack me. If they decide to attack me, Adult Gohan's going to clip them. So let's say we're playing neutral, and then I do this. Now that's fine. But here's the thing. If Fuzzy stays away from me, and we're just playing neutral and whatnot, and I want to catch them, if they're running away from me, that assist does nothing. If I had 18, we'll pretend that 18 can't be called there, but if I called 18, they might have actually landed into 18. This is something that Fuzzy needs to be aware that my team is capable of. They need to be aware when 18 is up or not, because that means that I need to get closer to them. If 18 is not up, they can theoretically stay farther from me than they really need to. If Gohan's not up, then it's safe for them to aggress against me a lot more freely, especially if they abuse their assists in order to get in. This is an example of a very basic strategy of what's possible when they understand how my team wants to move. The way they understand the way a team wants to move is by developing that game language, by understanding it. But that doesn't necessarily just extend to basic things like that. Game language can actually get very sophisticated, just like real language. Like, for example, I know for a fact that if they don't dash, their 5M will whiff from this distance. Like, it might be weird. You might be thinking, oh, I know their range. It's like, but how confident are you? I know that about right here, they'll just barely touch me. Right here, they won't hit me. I know this. Like the back of my hand. That's important. That is the more sophisticated type of game knowledge that you need to acquire. And not just with the meta characters, you need to acquire it with every character in the game. That probably sounds overwhelming to you. You might be like, holy shit, I never realized I had to learn that much. But here's the good thing. You probably know most of it innately. It gets easier and easier to learn as you go and practice. Because here's the thing. How did I know that? So, Fuzzy, will my 5M reach you from here?
Probably not.
Block. Yes, it will.
Damn.
See what happens there? If they didn't block, like, I would, like, imagine if I said to you, are you willing to stake your life on it? Like, are you that confident that I'm not going to hit you? That's very, 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 very important. But what's important to learn here, right, is that as you fight more and more and more and see these positions over and over and over and over and over and over again, you will innately learn. So, for example, the reason why you probably don't know my 5M range, Fuzzy, is because how often do Bluecus ever do 5M from tip range against you?
Not very often.
Yeah, but here's the thing that you do know. React. Oh, my bad. Hang on. I thought I had bar. React.
Oh.
Yeah, you gotta wake up. React. So what I'm seeing right here is a very deep lack of experience against a lot of Bluecus. You probably don't fight this character that often unless you're playing me.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's the important thing. So if Fuzzy were to go to a competition where they know, let's say Nitro would be there and they want to try to do well against him, they would need to understand Bluecus intimately. They would need to understand that from this range, my 5M will whiff. They need to understand my Lariat will reach. They need to understand my 2M will reach, my 5H will reach. For those of you that were not aware of Blueku's range, you are getting a masterclass on how far this character can actually reach. Understanding that, with that knowledge, Fuzzy can begin to maneuver their positioning by staying away from my moves. So, for example, let's say I want to control that Lariat. I know that M Lariat will reach me. The L Lariat from here will barely whiff. Do the L Lariat? Yeah. About here it will barely... Actually, I think from here you'll barely whiff as well. Do it again.
I think you could be slightly closer.
Go ahead. Yeah. But here's the thing. If they decide to do M Lariat, even full screen is not necessarily safe. You want to dash by them. It's like Kefla's, yeah. So that's very, very powerful. So if I want to control that threat, I can use my knowledge of game language to know where to stand. If I don't know what Fuzzy's going to do, I'm going to stay roughly over here because Fuzzy only has 1 or 2 attacks that can actually reach me from here. And if I'm constantly jumping, that Lariat is a lot less likely to hit me. Now, by the way, for those of you wondering, what you're seeing right now, and Fuzzy, you can confirm this, this is an organic, neutral situation. We did not rehearse this.
Yeah,
This is completely off the cuff. So, if you're seeing in real time, if I stay here, notice how much longer Fuzzy has to travel to hit me. That will be very important for the more advanced portion of this class. But for right now, I want you to think about that. Look at how little bits of game language and our understanding of the game's mechanics and our innate understanding of how far things can go and how long things take. Notice how that can impact our decision making. So how do we translate that into understanding what our opponent can do? So here's the thing. If I stay over here, I am managing what my opponent can do. Now here's the thing though. I don't actually know if Fuzzy's going to Lariat. And even though I'm over here, Fuzzy can literally just call Zamas and run up to me if they want to. And I have to surrender neutral there. That is also a very big possibility. So, that brings us to our second question. What will our opponent do? And how do we control that? So, I'm sorry, our second question is what do they want to do? Right now, if we're playing in a fighting game, your goal is ideally to hit your opponent. Now, that's sort of the end goal, but there's a lot of roundabout steps that someone's going to take in order to get there. So, for example, I know Fuzzy wants to punch me. Fuzzy's most likely not going to run up and press la la la, because if they do, there's going to be a 2M waiting for them. They need to be smarter than that. But the goal of hitting me is still the same. So, right here, I want you... I'm going to just jump back for a second. I'm going to say right here, and I want you to jump up, and when you land, run up to me and just auto combo, then go back to full screen, jump up, and approach me any way you think you can. Notice how that made me...
back there, but yeah.
Yeah, but notice how that made me jump, right? The reason why that made me jump there, even though I wasn't really necessarily willing to move, was because I don't want to block the assist. They are using the assist and spending a resource in order to hit me. Both of their goals in those two examples were identical. Both of them are trying to hit me. But one of them shows thought and safety and consideration and a careful management of those resources, and the other one got TOD'd. So, when we understand that the goal is probably to try to hit us, we can start making some basic assumptions. So, for example, if Fuzzy knows that I want to hit them and you jump up, like let's say you're just up backing. Look at my assists. What am I most likely going to do, Fuzzy?
Call 18's assists while you approach.
Close, but not quite.
Hmm.
Go ahead and jump. Because go ahead and super jump when Gohan comes back. I just want you to super jump block. Like super jump straight up, rather. Look how high Gohan reaches. So if I super dash, I'm tracked to your position. You're not going anywhere. If you press a button, like if you try to jab the super dash, Gohan will hit you. See? Or even if you don't, jabbing a super dash is hard, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a very likely scenario. So even though Fuzzy does have counterattack options here, well, I miscalled it there. But point is, I also have degrees of control. If you see an opponent up backing, I always expect super dash. Now, whether or not I can do anything about it, debatable. But I'm always expecting it, which is why I always encourage students to get back to the ground as quickly as possible. Because if you, let's say you short hop and I super dash. Boom. That's big damage into a Zamos. Go ahead. Take it. Like, look at that damage. If Zamos wanted to, that's BOJ Oki. I'm dead on the next touch. So if they spend 1 bar after a blunder like that, I'm probably going to reflect. I'm probably going to spark, and Zamos can control for that too. Which brings me to another thing. What do they want to do is something that we can manipulate. Because if we know what they want to do, we can make what they want to do a very bad idea. So let's say DR me JH and put me in BOJ Oki. Let's say I'm in this position with this much health. Don't do anything. Don't do anything. Just call BOJ. Okay, I block BOJ. What do I most likely want to do in this position? In this position with this health? Chat, I want you to think. What am I most likely going to do? I can't tag when I'm getting BOJ'd. Reflect, tag, spark. There you go. Very, very, very accurate. So, go ahead and block for a second. I'm going to bring in Adult Gohan. Go ahead and DR me, put me in BOJ. We'll pretend that it's Bluku.
You want me to do anything afterwards?
Yeah. DOD. Now, what happens if I... let me bring in 18. Go ahead. DR, same thing. Because they know that I'm going to do something, they are able to properly account for it. The only thing I didn't do was spark, but even if I sparked, it's still their turn. And if I empty vanish, that's Zamos. He can 2H me. Zamos' 2H is stupid. Now, that's a big deal. Now, you might be wondering, okay, well, how does he know you're going to spark? Well, the reason why he knows that the reason why Zamos knows that I'm going to spark is because I just got hit. Which means there's a lot of pressure on development. Which means Fuzzy, the player, has a pretty good idea of what their options are against that. And while it would be a quote-unquote read, it is something that they would be able to reasonably predict because they have actively incentivized my decisions. In other words, it is true that I can just do nothing, but then I'm holding a mix. If I hold the mix and I get hit, I die. So I get to choose. That is a very dangerous situation. And if we're in that dangerous situation, Fuzzy is actively putting incentive for me to do something. Like, yeah, I can do nothing. Is that a good idea, though? Probably not. And that's the foundation. By leveraging our game language, Fuzzy's able to make that decision to start baiting my spark, baiting my tags, things like that. And you might be wondering, what game language did Fuzzy observe? Fuzzy observed the position. I just got hit by a 2H from Gogeta Blue. I'm sorry, by Gogeta 4. That 2H hit me, and they used the opportunity to tag into Zamas. And then Zamas put me in BOJ Oki. That BOJ Oki, for 1 bar, they're forcing my spark. Now, you might be wondering, okay, but what if they're stupid? And that's obviously the biggest question that I get. You know, it's kind of mean, but like, what if my opponent's stupid? Well, then they're stupid, and they'll just probably hold the mix or die trying to wiggle out of it. But if they're smart, that's when your tactics are going to work a lot better, because now you have actively begun to control the third thing. What will I do? What I want to do in that case is not die. What I will do is probably going to be in service to that. And if you can account for that desire, you can kill me. This is the foundational step for learning how to listen to your opponent. And it all begins by understanding the basic game language. And by the way, this doesn't just apply to human opponents. You can use the game language to learn anything about any character. For example, for those of you, I'm sorry to bring it up, I've been on an Elden Ring kick lately. You can apply this in Elden Ring to a lot of the bosses and a lot of the enemies. Now, is the AI robust and sophisticated? Yes. Are they as developed as a real person? No. But they are developed by real people. And because they are developed by real people, they're usually programmed with specific strategies and parameters in mind for when they decide to do something. Which means that you can actively listen to them and use the game language in service to that. I will gladly demonstrate sometime in some stream. Oh. But there you go. So, is everyone following me so far? Do you guys now have an understanding of what it means to listen to an opponent? What it means is to assess their levels of decision making. It is to assess their decision making and let them tell you what they want to do. You're all correct. But the way we can begin to do that is by understanding and reinforcing our rudimentary knowledge of the game's inherent system mechanics, understanding how the system mechanics works, the scarcity of those system mechanics, the options available to every respective character, the ranges available to the character, the amount of damage they're able to produce. There's so much, it's overwhelming, which is why, if you are a beginner, this is why it feels like you're not getting better. It's not that you're dumb or that you don't understand. It's that I really think that a lot of you may not have really accounted for how much there is to actually learn about a game this simple as a result. Anyway, do you guys have any questions? If not, we're going to go ahead and move on. So now that you guys understand the basics of listening to your opponent, I want you guys to apply that in your matches. I want you to really think about, go ahead and review your matches if you fight anybody. If you want to train, you can ask any of my trainees. If you're a tier 2 sub, you can always ask me. And we'll go over it. And I want you to really evaluate how developed is your understanding of the game's inherent mechanics. Go back to your earlier example. Is this going to whiff, Fuzzy?
Which?
My 5M.
Looks a little farther than last time. I'm going to say,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Now here's the thing. Is my 6M going to whiff?
Your 6M? I don't think it's going to whiff. Oh! Okay, it wasn't as long as I thought it was.
Exactly. It's very important to learn and understand. For example, a lot of people don't know that if I IED here, you're getting hit. If I IED here, I'm going to whiff. If I IED above you, most of the time I'm going to whiff. And that's a free punish. Get fucked. Sorry. But this is very important. If you guys are not confident, like, for example, Fuzzy, you can ask me, is it going to whiff? Pick a range, and we'll play this game.
Okay. My moves?
Yep.
Let's see. Will my 2M hit?
Yes.
Will my 6M hit?
No, actually.
Will EX Lariat hit?
Yes.
Will medium flip hit.
Yes.
Actually, I should do it from here. Will it hit?
No. Oh, wait, it does.
Oh.
I mean, to be fair, if you're doing it from there, I'm 2Hing anyway, so it doesn't matter. Like, at that point, like, you're just dead. But yeah, you see, so for the most part, when I am that confident, I can actually control Gogeta very well. Because here's another thing that's very important to keep in mind. And this is going to be a lead into the next one. You asked me about M Lariat. Will it hit?
From here? You're asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll hit.
Prove it. No, sorry, not M Lariat. My bad. I meant the fucking flip. God damn it. I was gonna be so cool. I had a moment. I was thinking of a moment. God damn it. Go ahead. Just. Do your M flip. Ow, you actually caught my backdash. I was so confident too. But yeah, basically,
yeah, that move goes goofy.
Basically, it is also extremely slow though. You have to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
Because the slowness will be a problem. Because just because you can cross that distance doesn't always mean you can cross that distance in time. So, for example, the Lariat, there's nothing I can do about that. I would have to basically be in a position to make it whiff. However, that even if it hits me, the M flip, I have a pretty reasonable chance of getting away or even punishing it if you're not careful. Speed and timing is also going to be very, very important, which is basically going to be our next thing. So, question, is team building section on a different day or are you covering it today? We can talk about team building today and how it affects you, but I will, even if I don't get to it today, I will accept team building questions towards the end. Want to know about building Janemba hit shell and trying to find a good point for them. That's tomorrow's stream, actually. I would tune in then. So, we're going to move on. And now we're going to talk about the most important thing. We're going to build on everything that we just talked about, but we're going to talk about the barriers to entry that are going to basically be very large difficulties that you guys are really going to struggle with. I need you to stop moving for a second because it's very important. The biggest barrier to entry is in order to begin to apply what we're going to teach, not even necessarily to apply all of it, just to begin to apply, you need to have a certain list of requirements. Number one, you need to make sure that your game language is sufficiently developed that you are able to understand ranges at a pretty decent level as well as a certain degree of timing. You need to be at least an intermediate player to begin applying this. However, just because you are not an intermediate player, if you're listening to this and you're a beginner, that doesn't mean that you're forgotten about. You can begin to apply these principles right now, not by doing, but by watching. And once you do that, playing a lot will help you build that innate understanding. It is one thing to know, for example, whether or not, like, I know the exact speed of Fuzzy's 5M here. They might know the exact speed of my 236L. But do we know who wins if we didn't do the clash earlier? That's the question. You need to develop that type of understanding. It's one thing to understand, oh, I know this Lariat is very fast, or I know this 5M is very fast. It's another thing to understand how fast. There's a big difference between conceptualizing 120 miles per hour and being behind an actual sports car. Those are two very different experiences. You must develop that experience in order to be able to effectively leverage any of the information that I'm about to give you. However, that does not mean you should not learn it. And that does not mean you should not learn about it. You should learn about it as early as possible because I want you guys to understand where this is going. And that's going to bring us into our next big thing. You've probably heard me talk about it a lot. I've done several classes on it, but now I'm going to basically talk about it in great detail. We're going to talk about Maai. Maai, as you guys may be aware, is a Japanese term from basically Japanese martial arts, specifically from Kendo and Kenjutsu, but it is applicable to Kempo, it's applicable to Karate and any other Japanese, like it's even applicable to Kyudo, actually, which is or Boljutsu, like staff training, archery, things like that. It is applicable to pretty much all martial arts. It is universal. And what it really means is interval. When most people talk about Maai, they usually use it as a shorthand for engagement distance. Now, but the thing is that I want to use Maai instead for a big reason. So we can just call it engagement distance, and that would be a lot simpler. If I just call it engagement distance, you guys pretty much already have a pretty good understanding. We were just talking about a version of Maai with block for a second. We're just talking about a version of Maai with the 5M and the 2M and all that, blah, 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 blah. Like, that is an understanding of Maai. That is essentially Maai. However, the reason why I'm going to use Maai specifically as an example is because Maai covers multiple avenues of attack. So it doesn't just refer to this physical spacing. It's also referring to the timing of the attack. For example, this attack will reach. This attack will reach. Fuzzy, did you feel the difference in timing between the two of those?
Mm-hmm.
That's important. I'm not going to ask you what frames are because at this point, this is why I'm doing it against Fuzzy and not in the training room. It doesn't matter how fast it is. It doesn't matter if you know the exact frame data. What matters is that feels a lot slower than that.
Mm-hmm.
And that feeling is what's going to determine whether or not you feel confident enough to move. Because if you see this and we're jumping around, like let's say we're not just sitting there, but we're like, and you see this, yeah. But do you feel as confident with that? I noticed that you hesitated. I noticed you hesitated there. Yeah. Like right there, that's not rehearsed. That's not rehearsed, guys. Fuzzy's reaction right there, even though it is a controlled interaction, and they knew what I was going to do, I can tell because I've done this for so long. And Fuzzy, you can tell me if I'm wrong in front of everyone here. That was an instinct. You had the instinct to block. Because you knew that 5H was coming. Meanwhile, you had no problem, hey, doing this to my medium. Now, does this mean the medium lariat sucks? And is that what I'm trying to say? Very important. No, the medium lariat has its place. But that's not the point here. The point is a very important, arguably the most important element of Maai is timing. The timing of the attack. Even though these two attacks covered the same distance, they did not cover the distance at the same timing. And the difference in that timing was the difference between me dying and Fuzzy dying. Now, does that mean faster is better? No, that's not the point. Do not get bogged down into how much or how fast something is. Why does he have such a dumb fucking smile? I hate this character, man. Nerf his smile.
Nerf his smile. Okay, man.
But the point being here is that don't be like, oh, of course I should never M Lariat. M Lariat sucks. That's not the point. The point that we're trying to convey here is that 5H covers the same ground and therefore has more application in the way I was just using it. However, where M Lariat becomes very important is, Fuzzy, I want you to jump up, then I want you to ID back JS.
ID back JS, all right.
Or if I'm... Go ahead.
All right, jump up first.
Now suddenly, I would much rather be the M Lariat. I would much rather be the M Lariat. Even here, I'm plus. Fuzzy would have to vanish to not get hit.
And then I get 2H'd.
No, I don't think I think I have a little bit more recovery than that. I mean, we could try.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You have a little bit more recovery than that. However, a really great example to try this with would be 21. Jump up.
All right.
I did the wrong thing. There, I'm pretty sure I'm plus, actually.
Yeah, this has an insane amount of recovery. Like, you see that landing recovery? I cannot block that entire time.
Yep. I am very plus there. And if it's a character like Zamas, for example, that's a clean victory. But notice how the results differed between all three characters. This is important to keep in mind for the later part, which is how different techniques and different characters interact with each other. We just did the same scenario with 3 different characters, and the results were different. The same strategy will not work every time. This is one of the biggest mistakes that I see, not only at mid level, this is a very common mistake I see at high level tournaments. I'm talking about like bums, if you're talking about like even on Wanted, this is the most common thing where people think the same strategy works on every single character. Every character requires a different approach. I cannot do this against well, I can do this with a certain degree of risk to Gogeta, but 21 depends on the timing. Zamas, he's dead. And that's very, very important to keep in mind. Because even though the timing is different, the M Lariat still has its place as a very, very, very powerful tool. And there are situations I can imagine where I would prefer to use this tool over the 5H, even though the 5H is faster. Because here's the thing. The 5H gives them no time to react. The medium lariat does. I can use the medium lariat to get them to react adversely. We'll get into what that means at a different time. But for right now, I want you guys to understand that when it comes to tools, it's not a matter of which is better. It's a matter of which applies. I'm going to say that again. It's not a matter of which is better. It's a matter of which one applies. Keep that in mind when evaluating and assessing your own characters, especially when you're developing your game language. For beginners, definitely keep that in mind. Beginners will tend to default to the fastest and quickest moves with the quickest results. Do not neglect the rest of your toolkit. Very important. Now, timing is a very, very important thing. Another important element and dimension of Maai is angle. So, for example, go ahead and block low. The most obvious. That's a different type of attack. Even though they're both mediums, one comes from the air, the other one comes from the ground. Right here. This is very, very, very important to keep in mind. Because at this point, the angle of attack is something that we need to talk about, because that can determine whether or not something reaches, whether or not something hits. We need to understand the precise angle of everything that we do. That is a big part of Maai as well, and whether or not a character can compensate for that. For example, if I IAD back and Fuzzy did that, I probably would get caught. However, right here, Fuzzy's dead. Because if Fuzzy doesn't know where my JS is going to reach, that was completely by accident. My instincts are just that good. My battle instincts are crazy. That's Ultra Instinct, baby!
Instinct.
Get instinct! Stop! That sounds so gross. It's terrible. But anyway, Ultra Instinct. It sounds terrible. It sounds like I didn't shower. But yeah, point being, this is a very important part of Maai. So, to recap, Maai is about distance traveled, timing, and angle. There's a fourth angle that we're going to talk about a little bit more in depth as well. Kokoro no Maai. Kokoro no Maai is basically Japanese for interval of the heart. What does that mean? So right now, we're talking about things in purely mechanical terms. So, for example, I can design something. But here's what happens. Fuzzy, this time, I want you to ID back JS, but a little bit later than you think you would. So jump up, ID back JS, but later than you want to. Before, if they were to do that really fast, go ahead and do it normal. That was the interaction. But now, because they were slightly slower, go ahead. They're getting hit. Why is that important? What we just demonstrated is timing, but a different kind of timing. Not just the startup and recovery of a move, but the timing of a decision. Kokoro no Maai refers to the speed in which your decisions are made. And because they refer to what the speed of your decisions are made are, what ends up happening is, what happens if your decision making is impaired? What if you're having a bad day? What if your girlfriend broke up with you? What if you just had a really nasty day at work What if you flunked your exam? If your mind is not in the game, your decision making is going to be a lot slower because you are preoccupied mentally. If you want to compete at the highest level, it is very, very important to to basically instill a regimen of mental discipline. This is why so many martial arts, including MMA, have really solid workout routines. They usually talk about the importance of building discipline. They usually talk about the discipline of physical activity. This is why, because it's important to remain in a calm, clear mental state at all times. Because in those situations, especially if you're fighting in the octagon, the loss of speed of even just a little bit. We're not talking about Fuzzy getting hit in a video game. If we were in the octagon, we would be talking about Fuzzy potentially getting laid out on the floor and getting carried home in a stretcher. That is dangerous. In martial arts, these principles have real, tangible consequences. The reason why Maai is important, like the way you would learn Maai as a martial artist, is not by getting punished and hearing a character do. You're hearing bones crack, your head smacking off the pavement potentially. Now, that's a grisly image, and I'm sorry about that. But it's important to understand the advantage that we have in fighting games is that we are not in actual danger. But if the stuff that we're learning was basically taken from the art of literally killing each other with sharp weapons, we can probably safely apply it to fighting games as well. I feel like fighting games is a much easier application of Mai and these concepts than Kenjutsu. Because here's another thing. Imagine you guys are swordsmen. Imagine we're in the samurai era. Imagine a sword right in front of you. Somebody holding a sharpened weapon aimed at your throat. That's intimidating. It's a very, very scary mental image. And that was a reality for a lot of the people who gave us these concepts. Let's take those concepts and apply it to something a little less extreme. Although I'm sure you guys have felt something akin to dread if you've ever been in grand finals or have gone to a local or a tournament and fought someone really, really strong and noticed that you had no solution against them. Mental discipline is just as important as the actual physical stuff because the ability to essentially make a decision in the heat of the moment is one of the most important skills in this game, as well as real life martial arts. And it is a skill you must cultivate. Because if you are not in control of your emotions, your opponent will use them to control you. If you're having an off day, do not practice. It is okay to take a break. If you're not feeling up for it, don't force yourself. You will develop resentment towards the game. And if you're angry, you will likely, well, first of all, if you're not in the mood, you're going to be irritated, which means you are much quicker to anger. The quicker you are to anger, the more reckless your decisions become. And that is something that Fuzzy can very easily hang me for. I could start being overly ambitious, and now I'm applying the wrong thing, where now jump up ID back JS. Now I'm doing the wrong thing because I just want to hit them. I'm not paying attention to what they're doing. I'm blinded. It all goes back to listening to your opponent. You need to pay attention to what they're going to do. But most importantly, there's a fourth tier. What are you going to do? Don't neglect that. You are part of the equation. When you practice Dragon Ball, you must have the correct mindset. Not having the correct mindset will hamper your success. And what's worse is that if you do that consistently, it will cost you not only your matches, but it will reinforce the habit of failure. You fight like you practice. Highlight that. Write it down. Put it on a sticky note right over your monitor or your TV when you game. You fight like how you practice. If you practice in anger, you will fight in anger. The habits that you've built while angry will become the habits you lean on when under pressure and stress. Kokoro no mai is what governs this. And kokoro no mai is what talks about this. But the opposite is true. If your opponent is afraid of you, you can kill them. A very famous quote from Miyamoto Musashi: "If you make your opponent flinch, you've already won." And I can tell you, in my experience with WTG and fighting some of the best players in the world offline in my living room, that is true. That is 100% true. There were so many opportunities that I probably had, but you know why I lost? At the end of the day, it's because one of those players made me flinch. And that was it. If I had just maintained that calm heart, that focus, that discipline, things might have gone my way. They even thought things were going to go their way. And then I dropped. These things can impact you and impact your matches. So, we have a good understanding of Maai now, right? Do we have any questions about Maai? None so far. I've been writing down a lot. Very nice. Maai. Maai. My flinch will come from an online player hit their player in 5 frames. Yeah, that'll work. Ah. Now, this character is stupid.
What the hell was that?
Run up 6M. Well, that was kind of dumb. I'm not gonna lie. Ooh, nice. Right there. Good example of angle. Oh, I didn't mean a fast fall. That was confusing. Why did I hold J2S? But yeah, do you guys understand? Do we have any other questions? Last call for questions on Maai before I move on to the true topic. I'm going to show you guys the peak as best as I can. Maai. That was just nasty.
That was just rude.
Oh no.
Sit over there.
I shouldn't have played with my food.
I was half ready for that.
You were half ready. Is there anything you usually do to help correct your mood if you want to practice? Take a break. Take a break. Ah.
I would have missed anyway, damn.
Oh, pain.
God damn.
Okay, is there anything that you usually do? If you're angry, walk away. Calm down and analyze why you're angry. Understand the events that led you to that anger. And then once you understand the root of the anger, you can begin working at it in order to correct it. That's important. That's important. Fuzzy, I want you to put Gogeta, Vegito, and whoever the hell you want.
Okay.
In the meantime, the last concept that we're going to discuss today, and by
Let's
the
get my old
way,
team.
understand, we're going to go over every single thing that we've talked about in great depth in the coming weeks. The last thing that we're going to talk about is Mikiri. Now, if you've played Sekiro, you probably heard of Mikiri or the Mikiri counter. Mikiri is the most evolved form of Maai. It is what happens when you have totally mastered everything. For example, Mikiri 2M. That's Mikiri. You might be wondering, wait, what the fuck just happened? Well, let me explain to you Mikiri. Mikiri is when you understand the intervals 2M. Right there. When you understand the intervals where you don't even need to avoid your opponent anymore because you are right at the very edge of their move. And the reason why Mikiri is important is because of... Actually, I want to see who's been paying attention. Why is Mikiri so important? Why do I want to stand right on the tip range of a character? Why would I want to do that? What advantage does that yield? Because if we have tempo, for example, I want you to jump up and then 2M. I can still get a whiff punish. I don't need to stand. I don't need to stand that close to him to whiff punish him. This character is minus a billion. So why would I want to stand that close to him? If I can just control tempo, meaning I can maneuver the fact that I have a positional advantage because they're always minus to whiff. Yes, that is true. But the thing is, guys, I don't have to be close to him to whiff punish. I also have a big ass 2M. I also can do this, and that will keep me out of his range of future attacks as well. And what's worse is that I'm not risking anything by jumping back. I will recover in time for pretty much anything that he wants to do, except maybe call an assist in 5S. But have you met Gogeta Blue players? They're not going to 5S. They know what happens when you 5S. It's all fun in games until somebody empty vanishes it.
I could try to answer this one.
Go ahead.
What Gogeta is going to 2M? Oops. Stop moving. What Gogeta is going to 2M from here? What Gogeta is going to 2M from here?
That's true.
They're going to 2M when they think they can hit.
Mm-hmm. And right here, you would hit. But what happens, go back to that range a little bit further. But are you so sure if I'm right here, though?
I'm pretty sure that whiffs.
I'm 100% sure that whiffs. But look how close you were.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing. If you have Vegito, what are you going to do? You're just going to 2M call Vegito, right? So you whiff at about right here. I want you to 2M call Vegito. That is why you Mikiri. It's not a matter of whiff punishing, because look what happens if I do this. Jump up and then 2M. We traded. If that was a bubble, I'm screwed. Not even bubble would save Gogeta in that position. Nothing will. That's a checkmate. All because I was able to maintain that distance. Now you might be wondering, what human being on Earth is ever going to measure? Like, how do you even measure in that position? But that's not the point. Because Mikiri has other advantages. There are levels to Mikiri. The anecdote goes that Miyamoto Musashi was teaching his students, and he told and gave his students real swords and told them to swing it at him. And not only would they swing it at him, But as it passed by his face, he was able to give them the exact distance they whiffed by. So somebody would swing 5 inches. Somebody would swing 2 inches. Somebody would swing 7 inches. Somebody would swing 2 inches. He was that aware of the reach of their sword. But the reason why it was so important is because, remember, everything takes time. A big universal constant. Go ahead and block. This is much faster than that. Or if I... That. That is slow. The farther I am, the more time it will take me to reach them. And remember our knowledge. Remember our game language. We cannot physically go faster than the game allows us to. Meaning, if I'm beyond a certain reach, nothing I do will reach Gogeta in time. However, if I maintain Mikiri and make that my goal, it will be extremely difficult, not only for him to keep me out, but it would also be impossible for him to catch me. So, for example, Fuzzy, I want you to play neutral. Try to catch me.
Without assist or with assist?
Everything. Again. So right there, I meant to hit JM. So pause for a second. Right there, I made a miscalculation. I did this at that exact range. If I JM, he would have gotten hit. I fat fingered the 5L or the JL there. But you were mine. That's Mikiri. Even though I fucked it up. I wish I had a cleaner example and actually pressed the JM. But that's Mikiri. Again. Mikiri. Because I was able to, right here, Fuzzy was so determined to run away, even though they were at my tip range, that they gave me the positional advantage. I knew I would whiff my 2M there. But I was very certain that Fuzzy would jump away. That's the importance of Mikiri. If Fuzzy had Mikiri, he could have punished. You just saw why Mikiri is important. And right there, you just saw the difference between a mid-level player or somebody that's intermediate and learning and a more advanced player. Do you guys understand now? It may sound like I'm talking flowery bullshit, but look at this team. Aside from Base Coup, this is a meta team. And Fuzzy just lost neutral when that team is neutral on easy mode. Again. Right there, miscalculate my assist goal. Nice. Nice. That's a trap. That's a trap based on the fact that I know Fuzzy likes to long jump. So all I have to do is that. Once you understand how your opponent likes to move, at this point, I'm not fighting the team. I'm fighting Fuzzy's instincts. Because now I am utilizing everything that we've talked about against Fuzzy. Because I know how they play. Obviously, they're my student. I train them. But because I know how they play, I'm able to set traps for them like that. Are you guys starting to see what's possible? Again. Mikiri. That was actually a legit example of Mikiri. You thought that I was going to land, and then I used my double jump to bait you into whiffing. Right there, you guys just saw live. And remember, again, Fuzzy, I want you to reiterate this with me. This is not scripted. We did not practice this.
I am trying my damnedest to hit this man in the head.
This is not
Lord
rehearsed.
knows he deserves it.
Hey, man. Right there, they miscalculated their distance. Right there, That hit was because they do not have the game knowledge. This is not instinctual because even when I use this team against Fuzzy, I don't lariat very much.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know the reach yet. Like they know the reach, like they can probably tell, like, oh, okay, I have an idea, but not comfortably enough where in a real match under pressure, they're gonna be like, all right, I'm safe. There you go. I hope you guys enjoyed that neutral demonstration. I would love some feedback from you. Do you think this neutral demonstration has opened your eyes? Are you guys starting to see the concepts that we mentioned and everything that we talked about? Don't punch me. Oh, I don't have a cool walk cycle on this team.
I already won the mind game.
I heard you was talking shit. Wait, did I just hear your footsteps continue?
Try it again.
Okay, no. I was about to
Okay.
say. I was like, did I just hear your footsteps continue? I was concerned.
Oh, I DP'd.
The examples help a lot.
I'm been funny as hell.
Wonderful. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed this. Do we have any questions? Is there anything that you guys want to know? Is there anything that you guys might have missed? Remember that this is very rudimentary. If it felt short, it was supposed to be. I will be going over each of these concepts. Everything that we've talked about will be gone in great depth. We're talking about series for almost each one. Oh, you want to do that, huh? Yeah, neutral is one of the things I understand, so this truly helped. I'm very glad to hear it, guys. I hope that this has been a great help for you, and I hope you're excited for next week because next week we'll be jumping into even more neutral master classes. I'm going to be going over how to go over everything. I'm going to be having boot camps as well. So if you guys miss the streams, we'll go ahead and do a boot camp with it. And guys, make sure to tune in tomorrow. And if you liked what you saw here and you want to support the stream, as I mentioned earlier, we are having a little bit of a financial situation. If you guys want to donate any amount, it really does help. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. We do intend to have a donation stream tomorrow, so if you guys want to pitch in tomorrow, we'd be more than happy to. And if you guys have any team building questions, you want to save them for tomorrow, where I'll be more than happy to help you. Now, thank you guys so much for joining me with this class. I'm so excited, and hopefully I want you guys to review this because I always want you to remember, no matter how in depth we go into certain topics, I want you to come back to this particular overview and this syllabus because I want you to understand what the goal is. My goal from now on for you guys, I want you to obtain Mikiri. That's your goal. I want you to be moving with such confidence that people will whiff right in front of your face and you will punish them for it. That's my goal for you. And I think you guys will enjoy that. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much, Fuzzy, for being a very, very useful TA today. Mikiri. Mikiri.
I
But we will read this, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you all have a wonderful day. And thank you, Fuzzy. You are OD.
Woo! Try my best.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it. Everyone, give it up for Fuzzy. Let's show Fuzzy some love. Give them all of your hearts. Let's give them a heart emote for helping us out, guys. Because I don't think this class would have been as effective without them. I'm not leaving until I see some hearts for Fuzzy. Hey, there you go.
Thank you, guys. Digital applause.
You got a kiss emoji. Goddamn. Okay.
Ah, Normalize kissing the homies, bro.
You know what? I should normalize kissing the homies. But thank you guys for joining me. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. Good night, y'all.